With the history and tradition on the court at a place like Xavier University, the academic excellence and what this place stands for, it being very, very excited. You know, it's up to us when you get those types of opportunities to take advantage of it. When we throw you the ball, deliver.
Where are we right now?
We're in Las Vegas, baby. Good Thursday morning, everybody, with Allegiant Stadium behind me, the home of the Las Vegas Raiders. It is a great day to be here. Adam and I are about to head down to the Strip to check out the sights and sounds of F1 just a couple of days away from the race. We're also going to have practice coverage this afternoon, interviews, all that good stuff coming right up. Welcome here to the Formula One track in Las Vegas. You can see right behind us, this is where they're going to be running on Saturday night. Adam, it is a beautiful day here. It's a little cloudy, it was a little overcast to start, but it's beautiful now.
You know what we got coming?
What?
Speed.
A need for speed.
I love speed.
Love speed. Yeah, this is great. We can see it. It's busy. It's hopping. You can tell all the excitement and the energy coming in. We also got basketball on tap for you, too. Friday night, Sunday night. Hope you've been enjoying what you're watching so far. We got a whole lot more coming up here for you soon. Welcome to the campus of the University of Nevada, Las Vegas. It's UNLV, and it is practice time for the Xavier Musketeers as they get set to take on Washington on Friday night. That's 9 o'clock Pacific time, midnight Eastern time, going into Saturday morning. One of the biggest question marks for this Xavier team is the health of Lazar Djokovic. Will he be able to play and make his debut in his Xavier uniform? That is yet to be determined as we get through the weekend. But this is a Xavier team that's trying to pick up a couple of huge wins this weekend. First against Washington, and then one of either San Diego State or St. Mary's on Sunday afternoon. Some big opportunities here this weekend to build that non-conference resume as we get into this season. Stay tuned for coverage. Plenty more coming throughout the week here from Las Vegas. Day 3 here in Las Vegas, and it is game day. Xavier getting ready to take on the Washington Huskies. The big story, Lazar Djokovic ready to make his debut in a Xavier uniform. Adam and I about to head to shoot around. Come along with us.
Well, I always love playing in these tournaments because you get a chance to play against a high-level opponent, but you don't have to play them on their own floor. So you have, I think this is a great opportunity for Xavier. Washington, super athletic, super talented. They have multiple transfers. I think they have 7 transfers, a couple guys from Kentucky, and they're really talented. I like that Sean is really familiar with Washington. So I think he's familiar with the style, and I think it's a great opportunity for Xavier to get a quality win and start building that resume.
What do you feel like this tournament means for Xavier with so many new guys, so many fresh faces, chance to come out here, spend a few days together? What is this like for them?
Oh, it's great on a number of levels, Paul. I think, one, is that camaraderie that you build, like when you're away from home and you're just together the entire time. That's good for chemistry. And then I think when you have to play multiple games in a short period of time, it's almost like an NCAA tournament that you have a quick turnaround. You have to prepare for an opponent that you don't have a lot of time to prepare for. I think guys on the bench are going to have an opportunity to step up and show the coaches, hey, I deserve a little bit more playing time. So I think that makes for an exciting situation.
Questions?
Coach, a game that you had a lead for a long time and kind of seemed in control of in the first half, slips away with the foul trouble and the free throw shooting. Just kind of sum it up, and what'd you tell them in the locker room?
I thought Washington did a great job. Second half, he just punished us. Sasha is one of many freshmen that are playing. Tonight we played Sasha 19 minutes, Dalen 21, Trey 16 and a half, Lazar 17, Reed 2 minutes. Those are 5 freshmen. And we're in Vegas, whatever this is, game 4, coming off of Purdue. It's not that we lost, it's what happened in the game that causes me the pause. When you see guys not fighting, not really reaching as deep down as they can to compete, that's a way bigger problem than missed free throws and missed shots. And I thought Washington did a great job exposing that, testing that, and in the first 4-6 minutes of the second half, physically they just pounded us. And I thought it set the tone for a really tough second half. When you win, you live to coach another day. And when you lose, you die for a period of time until you revive yourself.
Saturday morning here in Las Vegas. Paul Fritchner, Adam Baum. We hope you've been enjoying the vlog so far. Xavier coming off a 74-71 loss to the Washington Huskies last night. It's been a great week outside of what we saw last night at T-Mobile Arena from Xavier. But I'm curious your overall thoughts on last night's game, Adam.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is it's one game. And it's very easy to be reactionary and to say, I saw a lot of people on Twitter that were being reactionary, as they do. And I understand it. I know when you care about something and you want the most out of it and the best for it, it's very easy to get caught up in one result. And I would just say, you felt very differently about this team on Monday night when they went 40 minutes with the number 2 team in the country on the road and they looked competitive. Well, that team did not show up to T-Mobile Arena last night against Washington. And, they did a lot of things that are head-scratching. Last night was the first night where it actually looked like a team with 10 new players and 6 freshmen. You look at it, 18 turnovers, 18 for 31 from the foul line. They committed 22 fouls. 2 players fouled out of that game last night. But the biggest thing, the biggest takeaway that we both had from that was sitting in that post-game press conference room and listening to Sean Miller, and you could hear it in his voice. You could see it in his demeanor. He was apoplectic, if that's the right word, with his team's lack of toughness. And the fact that I got that strong of a sense from him, I just know there's no way that that's going to fly with Sean Miller. Like, things are going to get ramped up now, okay? If he believes that his team lacks toughness, he's going to respond accordingly. And if I'm a Xavier fan, or if I'm someone that follows this program, if you're looking for a silver lining, a glimmer of hope, it's got to be that. It's got to be that Sean Miller is not going to allow a team that he believes lacks toughness to take the court game after game after game. He will do everything humanly possible within his power to correct that.
And that's what we're going to see on Sunday afternoon against St. Mary's, because this all of a sudden becomes a huge game for Xavier to try to win for their resume. It's the last opportunity for Xavier outside of the Cintas Center to win a game in the non-conference schedule. And when you get to Selection Sunday and the committee is looking at what you've done this season and they see a loss to Washington, a loss to Purdue, both on the road effectively. I know it's a neutral court last night, but yeah, outside of Cintas, now you start to say, okay, maybe they stack these wins at Cintas, but what do they do outside of their home arena? And that's the chance that Xavier has on Sunday, and they have to take advantage of it. St. Mary's was picked to win the WCC. It's a huge game.
It is, and it's big. It's big for a lot of reasons, but it's mostly big because right now Xavier is a team that they just essentially put 40 minutes on tape where they did not look the part. And now it's like, okay, you have a great opportunity to put that behind you.
This is the Sean Miller Podcast, presented by Deer Park Roofing. Now, here's your hosts, Paul Fritchner and Adam Baum, with the head coach of the Xavier Musketeers, Sean Miller.
Welcome back to the Sean Miller Podcast here from Las Vegas, our hotel room. Appreciate everybody watching so far. And Coach, we really appreciate you taking the time to do this on this trip. I know it didn't start off the way that you had hoped with a setback against Washington, but with a group of new guys that we have talked so much about, what can you expect out of a group like that with the toughness and tenacity that you're hoping to build in this team right now?
Well, that's the one byproduct, Paul, of these November exempt events, which they're called, and I think historically it's always favored a more veteran, older, more established team, simply because all of us in college basketball come off of these 30 practices that we're allowed to have before our season opener. And really, when you think about it, each one of us has just a couple of short weeks before this tournament begins. So a returning starter, multiple returning starters, a team that's been together clearly, and especially if you have talent with it, they have a huge advantage in the Maui Invitational. And I can go back as far as the first time that I was here at Xavier. We went to, I think it was called the San Juan Shootout in Puerto Rico. And we went with Dante and BJ, two older, more established players, especially BJ at the time. And we ended up winning 3 games in 3 days. I don't know if you remember it, but I can certainly remember it. It was like Virginia Tech. We went on an 80-foot buzzer shot by Dante. We then played Missouri, who I think at the end of that year was a 3 seed in the NCAA tournament. And then we ended up playing Memphis in the championship game. And Memphis, I believe got to the Final Four or Elite Eight in that year as a 2 seed, maybe even a 1 seed. But to win 3 games in 3 days or 3 games in 4 days was quite a task back then. But what it allowed us to do is take advantage of the returning experienced players, those that had been through the wars and battles a year earlier. And in our case, if you think about it, we were coming off of an Elite Eight performance. We were coming off of a 30-win season. This year, for us here at Xavier, it's much different. So, Paul, what we get out of this is some hardship, some tough lessons. It's not fun to drop a game, which I thought we had a real chance to win, especially at halftime, right, where we played 20 minutes of good basketball. But the first lesson is this. Basketball in college is a 40-minute game. Whether you're winning or losing at halftime, and maybe some things that you do well as a team at the half, leading into half, you got to do it all over again in the second half. And we're playing in chunks right now. At Purdue, we had chunks of a game where you're like, man, we look good. But we weren't able to do it against that caliber of opponent on their home court for 40 minutes. The same thing really happened against Washington. If you judged us by 20 minutes, 16, 24 minutes, we had enough good basketball to win the game. But the other 16 minutes is still a part of who we are. So we're trying to grow good performance. We're trying to make it, instead of it being half the game, Paul, or 24 minutes, we're trying to make it 28, 32, and eventually 40 minutes. Tournament like this, it exposes that and forces that change to happen quicker.
Coach, after the game, you talk about, you know, the toughness not being there, and that thing that you always want to be there, and early on in the season, maybe you hope that it is. It probably always doesn't arrive at the time when you want it to, but how do you teach toughness? How do you instill that aspect when it seems like that's normally something that's either there or it's not? What's that process like?
It's very difficult because, you know, with toughness, what we're talking about here is just sustained effort, right? Competitive spirit, playing the game with force without fouling. Not, you know, hit somebody in the chest and get an intentional foul. That's not toughness. Toughness is to put a 4-minute segment of a game behind you when your team or even you as an individual player just played poorly. And now get back up and come out after that timeout and go from that just happening to we now play a really good next 4 minutes. It takes mental toughness. It takes really, I think, a togetherness of the group of 5, both on offense and defense, to be able to forget what just happened and to bounce back and be better in the same game, not after you watch film, practice 2 days, and then come back and say, hey, we're doing it better in the next game. So, you know, toughness comes from being down in the second half and still winning, putting bad plays behind you and bouncing back. So I think, number one, it takes time. And then the other part, as a coaching staff, I look at it as my total responsibility to be able to show examples of this is how we do it, this is how we don't do it, this is what we have to improve. And when you hear that old adage of when you play a great schedule, it toughens you, it hardens you, it prepares you for big tests after Christmas in the Big East Conference. We're living it right now, but it's no fun. So I think for us with the young group, we had a really difficult film session, difficult from the perspective of there were a lot of errors and things we could have done better against Washington. We lived it, we showed it, we learn from it, we move on, and hopefully against St. Mary's, we can be better because of the experience of learning and the experience of going through that against Washington.
In a press conference after the Purdue game, you said, I'm leaving here with my head held high. And then you could see the frustration on your face after the Washington game. Where do you find that middle ground of what you saw on Monday or against Purdue and now against Washington here?
I think it's one of the hardest things as a coach is to like check the emotional side of it and really see things for truly how they are. Against Purdue, and again, we have to become a lot better at the things we do, even in that game. But I thought all things considered, we played with a great spirit, a great energy and togetherness. We weren't perfect, but we fought all the way to the end. And I thought there were some real positives to learn from that game, even though we didn't win. Against Washington, we had opportunities to put them away. We had opportunities to be the winner of that game. And one of the things that really plagued us is just from an offensive perspective, our inability to execute, pass the ball, and play together. We broke down in our unselfishness. We broke down in terms of dribbling too much, not making the easy play. We keep track of something called DNRP. Did not run play. Right? You could put another letter in there sometimes to really go. But it's the plays called. There's 5 guys who have a job and responsibility to do. You have to execute with timing. Something ends, another thing begins. The pace, the movement, the screening, right? And it creates the best shot possible. Sometimes you can really execute and the other team does a great job defending, and now you have to play after the play, team basketball, and now generate a shot through team concepts. And there's a lot that goes with that possession, right? So, you know, in the Washington game, we had more DNRPs than any game we've played so far. So again, when you talk about things that I think can be frustrating, things that you really have to hold players accountable on, that we have to improve, you can't execute and be a winning team when you have DNRPs as part of who you are. So in our case yesterday and the day between games, what we really tried to do is go over our own execution. And as much as this is about getting ready for the opponent in the next game, I think one of the things I've learned, it's so much about who you are. Can your guys bounce back from a difficult loss, handle coaching and criticism, be better? Can we correct things with just a short one-day turnaround? So that becomes like the next challenge of a tournament. But I have no doubt, flying across the country, playing a game, I believe in the second half, it would have been about 2 a.m. or 2:30 our AM, 2:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Having that, dealing with the time change, playing 2 games in 3 days against really top competition, that we, when the trip ends, will be better because of it. Now, how many games we win out here, that remains to be seen, and we still are trying to win. But I know that sitting in the Cintas Center and playing highly favored games, that serves a purpose. But nothing brings out the best or teaches you who you are and what you have to be better at than playing away from home in the western part of the country for us against quality opponents.
Coach, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, as a coach, you probably feel like, man, I want to be in control of everything. I want everything to go the way that I want it to go. And I think a big part of coaching is having guys on the floor who take on what you want to happen, who know what you want, who are vocal with what you want, and act as an extension of you when they're on the court. And I think you're asking a guy like Des Claude to take on a role like that. Who else are the guys on this team, and how do you express to them and impress upon them, like, I want you to be this guy for me. We need guys that can be loud and know what the plan is and know how to execute it.
Point guard position. Right now, Davion McKnight, in fairness to Davion, even though he played at Western Kentucky and was a terrific player for them, he has to run a new system. It's harder for the point guard to adjust than any other position. I'll take you back to the month of November last year with Sule Boom. Not everybody was saying he was going to be an all Big East performer or, man, he's the answer. There was a lot of question marks. And in fairness to Sule, just like with Davion, it takes time for him to learn what's expected. He's in charge of the other 4 players more than any other position, and yet he's also in charge of his own performance. We need more vocal leadership. We need more of an extension between our point guard, Davion McKnight, and our coach and staff. That will be helpful. Some of the DNRPs are a function of we have a player or multiple players on the court that English isn't their first language. If you're that point guard, you have to walk up and say, hey, Sasha, you got the play call, right? You know, thumb up. You good? Yeah, great. Just checking. So that's truly the extension. You know, the raw. Look, we want everybody to show raw emotion because to me that energizes your group. But you also have to be who you are. You could be a quiet player and quiet person, still talk, still give the right amount of energy. And then the other part of it is Trey Green, who's a true freshman. When Davion is out, you know, Trey right now is working through making shots. And so far he hasn't gotten off to a good start. I am totally confident that he will repair that. It's just a matter of time before the ball goes in. But I think that's on his mind some, and it's affecting some of the other things that he could do really well as a point guard, which is running the show, taking care of the ball, making sure you're in charge of the other 4 players, defensively, being better on defense than you ever have before. But when you have 10 new players, Adam, and look, I'm not going to keep beating that same drum because that shouldn't be the narrative. But the fact is, in November, the 10 new guys, the 6 freshmen, the 3 international players that are among that group, that's not to our advantage early on to be successful. And that's why I think that as we stay with this, with health being in our future, good health being in our future, you know, we will continue to grow and improve. And eventually the best version of our team will show up at some point, in my opinion, after Christmas.
Now you look forward here, you play St. Mary's, and then you look forward into the rest of the week and go forward into Houston and all of this that's coming before Big East play. But this game against St. Mary's is the last time you play away from Cintas before you go to Carnesecca Arena and open Big East play. So what do you hope? You talk so much right there about going to the West Coast and playing those games away from Cintas, but now you get to come home for a month. So when we're sitting here before that St. John's game, what do you hope they've accomplished from here to then?
Well, certainly you want to be more comfortable playing away from Cintas than you would otherwise be if you didn't take on this challenge. I mean, again, flying across the country, playing in a different time zone, most importantly against two not excellent teams, because you can make the case there's those out there that are better than both Washington and St. Mary's, but from a talent, coaching, the league that both teams play in, the history of their programs, and what both of their goals are this year, St. Mary's and Washington, we're playing very, very good competition away from home. Throw in Purdue at Mackey Arena, and you call on these types of experiences, the preparation in the hotel, right? Traveling, getting off the plane, what's expected, how we watch film, being on time, what shoot-around feels like, not for a home game, but an away game. All of that, I think, allows a new group to get more comfortable than they otherwise would have been if we're sitting there with an inflated record, having never tested ourselves. There's certain aspects of that first away game that we would have gone through unnecessarily because we didn't take the time to prepare for it. So these experiences, no question, harden the group. And to your earlier question, Adam, how do you develop toughness? Well, some of it is we have to give our guys some tough situations to go through and live through it and work through it. And by the way, if you're successful and it's tough, now you develop that big word, confidence.
Coach, last thing I got for you. I think, we've talked a lot on this show about you've done this for a really long time. And I think the expectation going into every season is that there will be hardships. You're going to run into some roadblocks. Things are not always going to go according to plan. What's that like when they arrive? Like, it's probably something that even 19 years in, you're not used to.
Yeah, I mean, a couple of things that I have learned, and I've learned from older coaches, those that are even older than me. Number one, I think as a coach in any sport, you have to be true to yourself. You have to be your authentic self. That doesn't mean you don't try to improve who you are and what you've done in the past. But for the most part, you have to be true to how you're wired. Like I'm a one-dimensional basketball-only person, right? I love my family, but when you talk about what are your other interests, Coach, you have to have other sports, you have to do other things. I can try them, but I've just been wired a certain way since I've been about 7 years old. So, the win and the loss in the past for me is when you win, you live to coach another day. And when you lose, you die for a period of time until you revive yourself. I'm not that way at the moment. It may not feel that way to everybody. But look, one thing about college sports, and I take the mantle of being the head coach at Xavier very seriously. We're supposed to win, and we're supposed to be in the tournament. And our biggest games on our schedule should bring out the best in our group. And when that doesn't happen, we have to fix that. That's not okay. And I think anybody that tries to put a silver lining on that is either lying or they're not going to be around to see the next day very often. College sports is about being successful. And while we go through the process, what you learn as a coach is there's no better lesson for our players than going through these tough times. It allows them to deal with adversity off the court and in their own future more. They learn the power of camaraderie, of togetherness. They get the sense that if they're not together or they don't have that great camaraderie, you can only go so far in life. That's going to be in the job that they have one day, in the family that they raise, in life outside of sports when these hurdles and trial and tribulations come their way. There's no better classroom than going through these hardships as a college basketball team and program. So I think as the coach, going through it with them, holding them accountable is part of our responsibility, So that's how we try to look at it. And I also think that will spur on growth and development in both our team and also especially in our freshmen.
Coach, I appreciate you being here and taking the time to do this. I got to say happy birthday.
Yeah,
it's your birthday the other day. Happy birthday.
Yeah.
55 is a unique number, so that's where I'm at. Thank you, guys.
Do you have any, you coached here in Las Vegas for so many years with the Pac-12 and coming out here for the tournaments and everything else. Any favorite memories, anything that sticks out from your time here?
We won the Pac-12 tournament several times and, winning a conference tournament. Imagine winning the Big East tournament. Yeah. It's quite a thrill. So, I think that's certainly part of it. And a couple of those championships happened in T-Mobile Arena as well.
Yeah.
So that brought back a lot of good memories.
All right, well, happy belated birthday here,
Thank
Coach.
you.
Best of luck tonight.
I thought we had a great response. To our team's credit, the last 2 days haven't been a lot of fun, but we worked together. I think we learned a lot from our Washington game.
You know, we watched a lot of film pretty much the whole game, and, you know, coach was on everybody about certain plays that we was making and, you know, just trusting the offense. So, you know, once we bought into that and also not fouled as much, you know, as, you know, we did with Washington, but, you know, it felt really good, and, you know, we trusted the offense and, you know, worked in our favor.
And by the way, like going back to the Washington game, if we stopped that game at halftime, we did some of the same good things against Washington in the first half as we did against St. Mary's. The problem with our group is we have to grow that good play. You can't just do it for 16, 20, 24 minutes. You have to be able to push it more towards 40 minutes.
Just trusting the process, listening to the coach, just, trusting my teammates, allowing me to find my spots on the floor and just doing what I need to do to, help the team win.
But we overcame that, came out on the other side, and I think rekindled some of our good play.
The scout for St. Mary's, they're a good offensive rebounding team. They 3 to 4 guys, crash every time. So we just hyper-focused on that and, did the best we can to get defensive rebounds.
I thought Desmond Claude played a great game tonight because he was a playmaker. He wasn't just a scorer. He was a playmaker. And I think that makes our team overall much better, harder to beat.
I thought we responded, in a good way. Like I said earlier, we watched a lot of film. We studied on what we could do better, and there was a few things that we pointed out, including myself individually, to, help the team win. And, we responded in a good way, got the win.
I mean, I'm incredibly proud of our group. You can't imagine the hard work in between a tough loss like we experienced against Washington and playing against a really good program in St. Mary's a day later, So it takes a lot of coaching, it takes a lot of effort, it takes a lot of work. And I was proud of our response, no doubt about it. And I think the growth we've now established from this trip, it's that old adage when you challenge yourself, the hottest fire forges the strongest steel. Coming across country, playing in a venue like T-Mobile Arena against both Washington from the Pac-12 and St. Mary's, who's an excellent program, it forces you to learn and grow. And I know we're better because of it.
And it almost feels like you watch a game like you just played against St. Mary's. It kind of reminds you that, hey, that team is in there. That team that's capable of doing the things that we're teaching them, the things that we want them to do, they're in there. Is that kind of what you take away from some games like this?
Yes, and just a reminder, November, and we're not even at Thanksgiving, with 10 new players and 6 freshmen, and 3 of those 10 new players are international players. English is not their first language. I don't think anybody can expect us to be at our best immediately. So that includes me. So we're going to grow incrementally. I also think looking at our Washington game, we did some good things in that game. If you stop the game at halftime, some of the defense we played here tonight against St. Mary's, we had established that against Washington. We just weren't able to sustain it and do it against a physical, older team in the second half. But that's one of the lessons we learned, and my hope is that we're better because of it.
One of the guys who I think has really gotten my attention he was the last guy to arrive, the last of the international guys. And I think when he got here, you kind of looked at him and you're like, man, what do we have here in Sasha Siani? And he's really developed. What do you attribute that to, and how impressed are you by the steps he's taken in sort of short amount of time?
You know, Sasha is he's mature beyond his years, playing, you know, for his national team in Slovenia. Just how he's wired, how serious he takes practice, how hard he works. You know, he didn't join us until the fall. So Sasha wasn't a part of June, July, and August, which is a lot of hard work and a lot of familiarity that makes players comfortable. So I think that he'll continue to get more comfortable, improve as we play more games.
Thanks a lot, Coach.
Thank you.
Time to check out and head home. Adam, it's been quite a week.
Yes, it has. It has. There was things that we were expecting to go according to plan, things that did not go according to plan, but all in all, it was a fun week, and I feel like we made the most of it, and hopefully you guys get a kick out of some of the stuff that we accomplished out here.
Got to see a lot out here in Las Vegas, got to watch some basketball, everything else. Thanks to everybody for watching along. We'll talk to you soon.